It's the best time of the year. I don't know if there'll be snow, but have a cup of cheer. Have a holly jolly
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir.
Welcome to the Otaku Evolution Christmas Jamboree, here in festive Penguinopolis. I'm your holiday host, Mike, Penguin Truth. Ah, the holiday season. There's a magic in the air that can rarely be matched throughout the year. Trees lit up throughout the town, you hear carolers sing classics, people are bundled up for the cold, and idiots are offended if you don't give them a specific greeting that reflects their personal beliefs. It warms the cockles of my heart when I hear Bing Crosby, Burl Ives, Andy Williams, and other artists I'd never listen to at any other time of the year, because, ew. It's the time of the year when you reflect on certain people's importance to you. How your life would be irrevocably altered if one thing or another had happened differently. In the universe of possibilities, who knows? That brings me to this year's selection. A few months ago, I tackled the ubiquitous phenomenon that was the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Based on a series of successful light novels, the anime exploded onto the scene in 2006 with its offbeat school ensemble meets science fiction stylings. The first season made a huge impact. The second season, while controversial, made its own mark, and eventually a movie feature was made. Based on the fourth Haruhi book, the movie The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya. This lengthy movie, which begins on the week before Christmas, sees our reluctant protagonist Kyon, snarky and put-upon high school student, irritated by megalomaniac Haruhi Suzumiya's holiday party plans. But just when he's resigned himself to participating in her fun, he's suddenly plunged into a nightmare. When he goes to school the next day, he finds that not only is Haruhi not a student, but now never was, and fellow SOS Brigade members Mikuru and Yuki don't remember him at all. Horrified that he's been spirited away to some parallel world, Kyon determines to find Haruhi, the source of all the weird happenings in his life. But it could be somebody else this time who's truly responsible. Can Kyon figure out a way to return to his own reality? Well, after nearly 3 hours of runtime, he damn well better. I want to make this review something special for the holidays. I had so many plans for this episode, and, come to think of it, I had plans that I forgot to cancel. I was going to do this whole The Grinch Who Stole Christmas thing, but I decided at the last minute it was a bit too cliche. I wonder if the song guy got the message that I was abandoning that idea.
You're a douchebag, Penguin Truth. You are a dumb shitheel. You're as clever as an earthworm. You're as ethical as veal, Penguin Truth. You're an ad for Trojan condoms. Incompetence is your Achilles heel.
Ooh, really should have shot that guy an email, huh? Well, I guess I should just get to the movie then. Our main cast is pretty straightforward. You might even say stereotypical. Unaware demigod and amateur solipsist Haruhi, gentle and nervous time traveler Mikuru Asahina, hyper-competent data entity Yuki Nagato, friendly yet unreadable esper Itsuki Koizumi, and cynical Kyon. They meet after classes in the headquarters of their SOS Brigade, the club room that is supposed to be for the literature club, and are subject to Haruhi's fickle whims. But this feature plays out with a twist. As you might suspect from the title of the movie, Haruhi doesn't play that big a role. After all, she's disappeared. And while Mikuru is mostly the same personality-wise, she doesn't recognize Kyon. But the character who's changed the most is the focus of much of the movie, Yuki.
Hey! Don't you remember this past summer when we had to repeat the same 2 weeks 15,000 times? Come on, try to remember! Everyone we know changed between yesterday and today!
Instead of being the detached but always in the know workhorse of the SOS Brigade, in the reality Kyon finds himself, Yuki is instead a wilting flower, a reserved, bookish, sensitive girl very similar to Mikuru. And Kyon spends much of his time keeping her company in the clubroom while trying to find some kind of familiar normalcy. It appears that while Yuki is incredulous over Kyon's claims, she nevertheless longs for his, or really anyone's, company. I can empathize.
You're so boring. Penguin Truth. No one watches your show. Each episode's overlong, and your whole production blows. Penguin Truth. You should just close down your Patreon and go find a place on Skid Row.
Then again, company can be overrated.
I think you should go to the hospital as soon as possible. You should do it before it's too late.
Speaking of which, Kyon's first tip-off that the world he's in is no longer the one he's from is the presence of Ryoko Asakura, a classmate that had revealed herself to Kyon as being Yuki's backup on Earth. And then she tried to kill him to see how Haruhi would react. Yuki defeated and erased her, and created data indicating that she transferred out. But in this movie, she's Yuki's only friend, even making food for her. Kyon finds this all deeply troubling. However, the old Yuki, the Yuki he remembers, has left him a clue in the clubroom in the form of a bookmark with a message, telling him to collect the keys within 2 days. This is as cryptic as she usually is, so of course it's not immediately obvious what she wants him to do. And of course he can't ask the Yuki that's with him. Clueless and distraught, Kyon is absolutely floored when one of his classmates casually mentions Haruhi in passing. He flies into a frenzy, desperate to know where she is, and is told that she simply attends another high school which in Kyon's old reality was a private school. While making himself look like a crazy guy to his classmates, he runs off to find her. Finally, after wallowing in despair in her absence, Kyon's found where Haruhi goes to school, and when he sees her, she's even with Itsuki, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The problem, however, will be reintroducing himself to her and convincing her of the truth.
The guy carrying carrying a girl on his back. You remember that guy, don't you? You made him draw those things, right? And I know what those drawings were saying. They said, I am right here. That hurt!
Why? How come you know about me? Who have you been talking to? Hang on. I never told anyone before about that night. Back when I was... North High? Who are you? What's your name?
John Smith.
And the boogeyman known as continuity rears its head again. If you've been able to follow me thus far, it's probably because you've already seen the TV show or read the novels. The disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya is far from a standalone feature anyone could pick up. It's steeped in a Haruhi mythos, and the name John Smith is important. When Kyon traveled back in time in the episode Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, he met a younger Haruhi who was sneaking into her junior high at night to write messages for aliens. While he was there, she made him do all the work while she supervised, and he said his name was John Smith to protect his identity. As he had on a North High uniform, Haruhi was inspired to go there for high school, thus a predestination paradox. In a cafe, Kyon explains basically the premise of the series to a dubious Itsuki and a hopeful Haruhi, about the different supernatural people around Haruhi in his universe that were surrounding her without her noticing they were real. This tantalizes the previously bored Haruhi.
The version of you that comes from my world never believed anything I said.
That's because that me is a complete idiot. But I believe you. Because that kind of world is way more unbelievably cooler! After I met John Smith, I did some research on the students at North High. I staked them out, but I never saw anyone who looked like John. But now I know that's because 3 years ago you weren't a student there yet.
Itsuki, his usual chatty self, comes to two theories as to what has happened. One is that Kion has crossed over to a parallel world accidentally, which would raise the question as to where this other world's version of Kion is. The second possibility is that something happened to the world he's used to that changed everything, in which case it's necessary to find out why Kion was the only person unaffected by the change and how to change it back. Then there's the question of who was responsible for changing it if it wasn't Haruhi. Haruhi, meanwhile, insists on sneaking into North High to gather the SOS Brigade in the club room. While she runs off to hail a taxi, Itsuki tells Kion that the Haruhi of the world he came from must have really liked him if she kept him around, despite there not being anything special about him. Haruhi and Itsuki disguise themselves in North High gym outfits to gain access to the school. There, Haruhi kidnaps Mikuru and takes her into the literature club room where Yuki is. Now that the entire SOS Brigade has been assembled, Haruhi is eager to find out what comes next.
Everyone present and accounted for. Oh, I can't take credit for this one. No. Haruhi dragged Koizumi and everyone else here all by herself. By the way, Nagato, it's been a while.
What will Kion choose to do, remain in this new world, or return it to how it was? And who is responsible for transforming it to begin with, and how will it be changed back? We'll return for these answers after these messages. Otaku Evolution Christmas Jamboree is brought to you by Lucky Squid Studios, creators of Fruitimals, Channel Frederator Network, Maker Max Studios, and Red Ribbon Beer, the beer that celebrates good times. We'll be back with this reality warping dramedy after these messages. We now return to the Otaku Evolution Christmas Jamboree with our host, Penguin Truth. Welcome back. When we left Kion, he had an important decision to make: staying in a world where Yuki was a different kind of moe than before, or return to the world where Haruhi is so thirsty for him. It's a moral quandary, really. At this point, Kion is fairly unwavering in wanting to return things how they were, even going out of his way to return the application for Literature Club membership Yuki gave him. You can tell this crushes her gentle young heart in a completely superfluous symbolic gesture on his part. Way to be a jerk, Kion. He engages the emergency escape program and finds himself having an Evangelion moment.
How come you know about me? I will never forgive you.
Our not-so-plucky pessimist finds himself back in the club room, except it's at night and in the dead of summer. In fact, it's the night of Tanabata, the same night he went back in time and met the young Haruhi. He takes the opportunity to find and spy on, himself. Not wanting to rock the time and space boat too much, he avoids himself and meets with the older time-traveling version of Mikuru after she's done talking to the other him. Older Mikuru has a complicated explanation for the current happenings and some musings on her past to share.
Back then, I didn't know my left from my right. Miss Suzumiya did whatever she wanted with me. She made me wear all those costumes.
Yeah.
It was a lot of trouble at the time, but they're all happy memories now. Kyon, you know what?
What?
One day, you're going to look back on the days you spent as a high school student with nostalgia.
They visit the Yuki from the original past, who has Kyon and Mikuru time suspended in another room, and yet isn't surprised when another Kyon and an older Mikuru visits her. This is the real Yuki, the girl who isn't startled by much. She reads a code in the writing on the bookmark and reveals that the person responsible for this mess managed to harness Haruhi's reality warping powers for their own to change the world. The world was changed 3 years later on the night of December 18th. She conjures a correction program that will disable that person from changing the world. It just has to be injected. Then Mikuru uses her abilities to transport her and Kion into the night in question, where the culprit is revealed and, well, it's not that surprising. Kion reluctantly approaches a Yuki who, now rewritten, is clueless as to why she is where she is. When he sees her confused expression, he reflects on her reason for doing this, which Yuki referred to as a buildup of error data. She's begun to develop real emotions. After going through all she's been through with the SOS Brigade, being completely aware of the time loop in the Endless 8 storyline, watching the other members interact with passion, without knowing it, she started to feel restless until she snapped. She left the decision over whether to transform the world back to Kion because she knew he'd make the right choice whatever it was. But now Kion is confused and indecisive. Or so he thinks at first.
Don't you think Haruhi and all the weird things she made happen were just a little bit fun? Spit it out! And I loved every minute of it!
Before Kion can act on his choice to inject Yuki with the correction program, however, he is attacked by none other than Ryoko Asakura, whose aim with a knife has improved drastically. The poor bastard is bleeding out on the cold ground. Apparently Asakura has been rewritten to protect Yuki's perfect world. Shit's serious, son. But at the last moment, her hand is stayed. Then, perplexingly, as he passes out, Kion sees an older future Asahina and regular Asahina and... himself? What? Then Kion finds himself in a hospital room, with Itsuki waiting on him. Proper time has been restored, and whatever happened to restore the time on, Kion was said to have fallen down a flight of stairs, which means time travel hijinks we didn't see. But Itsuki isn't the only one in the room with our hero.
Hey.
Hey, Joe!
In the evening, Kion takes to the roof, reflecting on what he's done and what's still to be done time travel-wise. And Yuki appears, basically to acknowledge her fault and tell him a punishment will probably be handed down by the data integration thought entity. An incensed Kion isn't having that crap, though. As it begins to snow, Kion pledges to protect Yuki by telling Haruhi the truth about everything if something should happen to her. He blames the thought entity for not giving Yuki a more complete personality. This is probably my favorite scene of the movie.
I'll make this world a place where you're here, and the data integration thought entity isn't. Even if we have to flip the universe over on its side, I promise we'll get you back. You can go and tell that to your superiors.
Transmitting.
Things return to, more or less, normal, even though Kion knows he has to time travel again eventually. The movie ends with Kion making his way to the club room for the SOS Brigade Christmas party, knowing that he's chosen this world, for better or worse. And he's fine with that for now. And that's the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, a complete, if exhausting movie that can kind of be seen as a culmination of the Haruhi animated series, even if there are plenty of novels and short stories left to adapt. Kion makes his choice to stay in the weird world he lives in, the weird life he's lived since meeting Haruhi Suzumiya, because it's what he actually wants. It's not some fit of pique like Haruhi's eccentric whims, it's what he desires from the heart. And the movie paints this picture beautifully and pretty heartwarmingly. On the other hand, yeesh. Have you ever had cake batter ice cream? One time I ordered a carvalanche with cake batter ice cream. And of course, it's delicious, but about halfway through the damn thing, it was enough already. I still finished it, but I had eaten enough cake batter ice cream for a lifetime. Some flavors are intended to be enjoyed in smaller doses over time, and Haruhi might be one of those. Since this was an adaptation of an entire Haruhi novel, maybe it would have been divvied up better as a season of the show. But then we wouldn't have gotten the quality bump you get with a theatrical production. Even if the movie is a tad overindulgent, so is Christmas. Compare it to other holidays that are more somber or reflective. Christmas, like Thanksgiving, has become mostly just hedonistic excess. And honestly, it's not even such a bad thing now and then. If you're bothered by that, the movie still does have a lot of heart. As far as indulging, do me a favor, folks, and don't overdo it. You might end up...
You're a ripoff. Penguin Truth. A lesser Bennett the Sage. Your lackluster reviews are filled with impotent rage, Penguin Truth. Stop obsessing over cartoons, and for fuck's sake, act your age.
You'll end up regretting something, like that some guy is going to. Well, that's enough of this year's celebratory wankfest. If I really want to reflect, there's always the season finale next time, in which I take a look at the English dubs I've watched, heard, since my mid-season show. Until then, here's wishing you a Merry Christmas, and see ya!
You're a Spurglord. Penguin Truth. You're drunk on penguin jizz. You're as thoughtful as a lemur. You would fail an IQ quiz, Penguin Truth. The only difference between you and Christian is people know who he is. You're a Spazoid. Penguin Truth. You're not misunderstood. We can all see that you're desperate and your voice works stiff as wood, Penguin Truth. By the way, about your pixel art, I know you put a lot of work into it, but honestly, it's really not that good. You're a leper, Penguin Truth. You're ugly, rotten, lame. Your approach is faux pretentious, and what the fuck's with that name, Penguin Truth? Seriously, I can't believe I wasted time singing this song about you. You're the internet's greatest shame.